Brothers and sisters, we live in an age of noise. The world tells you to put your life on display, to reveal your every step, your every thought, your every struggle. But let me ask you, does the world deserve to know what is sacred? Does the world have the right to take from you the very things that God has given you to treasure? There is power in silence. Jesus himself often withdrew to lonely places to pray. He didn't seek the crowds. He didn't chase applause. He guarded his time, his heart, and his purpose. Yet today, many live for validation, exposing their struggles, their victories, their very souls to a world that does not care for them, only for entertainment, only for judgment. In a world that glorifies exposure, where every moment is broadcasted, where silence is mistaken for weakness, there is an immeasurable power in keeping quiet. The world tells you that if you are silent, you are invisible, that if you do not constantly announce yourself, you will be forgotten. But God has always worked mightily in the quiet places. The greatest transformations, the deepest growth, the most profound encounters with him, these happen in silence, away from the eyes of men. Jesus himself did not seek attention. He performed miracles and told people not to speak of them. He withdrew from crowds, spending time alone in prayer. The Son of God, who had every right to declare his power, chose instead the path of humility and discretion. And yet today, many live as though their value is determined by how much they reveal. They pour out their struggles for the world to see, thinking that validation from others will bring healing. They share every step of their journey as if their purpose is only real when it is recognized by men. But what is sacred should not be carelessly displayed. Your dreams, your struggles, your prayers, these are not for the world to consume. They are between you and God. There is a reason why Scripture tells us to pray in secret, to seek God in the quiet place. When you expose your life to everyone, you invite voices that have no right to speak into your journey. You invite opinions that will shake your faith, distractions that will weaken your focus. Look at the life of Joseph. God gave him dreams of greatness, but in his youthful excitement, he shared them too soon. What did it bring him? Betrayal, slavery, prison. Was the dream wrong? No, but the timing of its revelation was not in Joseph's hands, it was in God's. And when the time came, God raised him up, not because he announced himself, but because God had been shaping him in the hidden places. Many people wonder why they have no peace, why their hearts are restless, why they feel overwhelmed. Could it be that they have opened their lives too widely? Could it be that they have allowed too many voices into spaces that should belong to God alone? When you constantly share, you invite criticism, comparison, and distraction. You give people permission to weigh in on things they do not understand. You allow their opinions to stir doubt in what God has spoken to you in secret. True strength is found in discretion. There is a time to speak, but there is also a time to remain silent. There is a time to be seen and a time to be hidden. Do not fear the hidden seasons of your life. Do not mistake silence for insignificance. Some of the most powerful works of God happen in obscurity. Moses spent years in the wilderness before leading Israel. David was anointed as king but returned to the pasture before ascending the throne. Jesus lived in quiet obedience for 30 years before his public ministry. If God himself works in the hidden places, why do we rush to be seen? Why do we feel the need to share every blessing, every struggle, every move we make? The world does not need to know what God is doing in you. The world does not need to validate your calling. The approval of men is fleeting, but the approval of God is eternal. Hold on to the power of silence. Guard what is sacred. Let God build you in private. Let him strengthen you in the secret place. And when the time is right, he will lift you up, not for your glory, but for his. Your heart is the wellspring of your life. Everything you do, your thoughts, your desires, your decisions, flows from it. That is why the Bible commands, above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. Proverbs 4:23. If your heart is unprotected, if it is exposed to the wrong influences, your peace will be stolen, your focus will be shattered, and your walk with God will be weakened. We live in a world that constantly fights for our attention. Everywhere you turn, there is noise, distractions, temptations, opinions. And social media bombards you with images of other people's lives, feeding comparison and discontent. The news fills your mind with fear and anxiety. Entertainment subtly influences your thoughts, shaping what you believe is normal, what you desire, what you think you need. Without even realizing it, you begin to conform. You begin to lose the clarity and purity of mind that comes from being rooted in Christ. What you allow into your heart will shape your destiny. Many people wonder why they lack peace, why they are always restless, why their minds are filled with confusion. Could it be that they have opened the gates of their hearts to things that do not belong? If you constantly expose yourself to negativity, if you surround yourself with gossip, if you consume content that glorifies sin, do not be surprised when your spirit feels heavy, when your walk with God feels distant. You cannot fill your heart with the world and expect the peace of God to remain. Guarding your heart is not passive. It is intentional. It means filtering what you allow into your mind and soul. It means being careful about what you listen to, what you watch, who you surround yourself with. It means setting boundaries, not because you are weak, but because you are protecting something valuable. A soldier does not leave his post unguarded. A king does not leave his treasury open for thieves. Why then should you leave your heart exposed? Look at the example of Jesus. Though he walked among sinners, he was never influenced by them. He withdrew to pray, spending time alone with the Father. He did not entertain the voices of those who sought to distract him from his mission. When Peter tried to persuade him away from the cross, Jesus rebuked him. He did not let the opinions of men shake his purpose. How much more should we, as followers of Christ, be careful with what we allow into our lives? Many people today live in constant anxiety because they have no discipline over their minds. They scroll endlessly, absorbing every opinion, every piece of bad news, every comparison, every lie. And then they wonder why they feel overwhelmed, why they feel distant from God. You cannot allow everything into your mind and expect to walk in peace. If you are serious about guarding your heart, you must be serious about what you allow into your life. Who are the people speaking into your heart? Are they leading you closer to God? Are they filling you with doubt, with fear, with worldly desires? Are your conversations filled with truth, or are they filled with gossip, negativity, and vanity? Do the things you consume lead you to Christ, or do they pull you away? These are questions you must ask yourself daily. Do not be careless with your heart. Your peace is worth more than the approval of men. Your spiritual health is worth more than fleeting entertainment. Your relationship with God is worth more than fitting in with the world. Set up walls of protection. Be ruthless in cutting off what leads you away from Him. And most importantly, fill your heart with His Word, with His presence, with His truth. If you guard your heart, you will guard your peace. If you guard your peace, you will walk in the joy and strength that only God can give. The desire for approval is one of the greatest traps set before us. From the time we are young, we are conditioned to seek validation, to be praised, to be liked, to be accepted. And while encouragement can be good, the danger comes when we begin to live for the approval of men instead of the approval of God. When our worth is measured by how people see us, when our decisions are shaped by their opinions, we become slaves to their expectations. Many people today are trapped in this cycle. They carefully craft their words, their actions, their image, hoping to gain applause. They fear rejection more than they fear sin. They compromise their convictions, water down the truth, and silence their faith so that they do not offend. They are more concerned with fitting in than with standing firm. And yet, Jesus warns us in John 12:43, for they love the approval of men rather than the approval of God. If you live for the approval of this world, you will never have peace. Why? Because the world is never satisfied. The crowd that praises you today will turn against you tomorrow. The same people who shouted, "Hosanna for Jesus," cried, "Crucify him," just days later. If the Son of God himself was rejected, why do we think we can follow him and be loved by the world at the same time? Do not be surprised, my brothers and sisters, if the world hates you. 1 John 3:13. The approval of men is fleeting, but the approval of God is eternal. So many people have lost their way because they feared man more than they feared God. They were called to stand for truth, but they stayed silent because they didn't want to lose followers, friendships, or opportunities. They were convicted to walk a narrow path, but they compromised because they didn't want to be ridiculed. They traded their peace for popularity, their convictions for comfort, their faith for favor with men. But what does it profit a man to gain the whole world and lose his soul? The fear of man is a snare, but those who trust in the Lord are secure. If you are constantly chasing after people's validation, you will be exhausted. You will always wonder if you are doing enough, saying enough, pleasing enough. You will shape your identity around the expectations of others rather than who God has called you to be. But when you live for God's approval, you will be free. You will no longer be bound by the shifting opinions of people. You will walk in confidence, knowing that your worth is not based on how others see you, but on how God sees you. Paul said in Galatians 1:10, "If I were still trying to please people, I would not be a servant of Christ." You cannot serve two masters. You cannot live for the approval of men and the approval of God at the same time. If you are faithful to Christ, you will be misunderstood. You will be criticized. You may lose relationships. But you will have something far greater, peace. A peace that comes from knowing that you are walking in obedience to God, that your heart is right before him, that you are living with eternity in mind. Do not fear rejection. Jesus was rejected. The prophets were rejected. The apostles were rejected, but they were honored by God. And in the end, that is the only approval that matters. The world's applause is temporary. The praise of men fades. But when you live for Christ, when you stand firm in your faith, when you refuse to compromise for the sake of being liked, you will have the peace that only he can give. Seek his approval, not theirs. Stand for truth, even if you stand alone. Fear God, not man. And when the world turns away, know that heaven is watching and your reward is secure. Just because you can share something doesn't mean you should. We live in a time where privacy is seen as unnecessary, where people believe that every thought, every plan, every success, and even every struggle should be made public. Social media has created a culture where people feel pressure to reveal their lives in real time, to update the world on their every move. But the wisdom of God teaches us a different way, the way of discretion, the way of privacy, the way of guarding what is sacred. There is power in keeping things between you and God. There is strength in moving in silence, in making decisions without seeking the approval of the crowd, in praying without needing validation. When you share everything, you expose your life to unnecessary voices, voices that may discourage you, distract you, or even work against you. Not everyone needs to know what God is doing in you. Not everyone should have access to your dreams, your battles, your blessings. Look at Nehemiah when he was rebuilding the walls of Jerusalem. He didn't announce his plans to everyone. He moved quietly, assessing the situation, seeking God's guidance, and then acting in wisdom. The enemy only arose when they saw the work beginning. Had he spoken too soon, opposition might have destroyed the mission before it even started. How many times have people lost opportunities because they spoke too soon? How many dreams have been crushed because they were shared with the wrong people? Joseph learned this lesson the hard way. God gave him a powerful dream of leadership and destiny, but he shared it with his brothers, and their jealousy led to betrayal. His calling was not meant for their approval. His destiny did not require their validation, but his words gave them an opportunity to come against him. If he had kept quiet, his journey may have looked different. This is why discretion is so important. Not everyone is happy to see you rise. Not everyone rejoices in your blessings. Some people pretend to celebrate you while secretly resenting you. Others may intentionally try to hinder what God is doing in your life. Even Jesus understood the importance of silence. After performing miracles, he often told people not to speak about them. He did not seek attention. He did not chase fame. He moved according to the timing and will of the Father. There were things he revealed only to his disciples, and even among them, some were given greater insight than others. If Jesus himself exercised wisdom in what he shared, why do we feel the need to publicize everything? Some battles are meant to be fought in private. Some victories are meant to be savored in silence. Some prayers are meant to be whispered only between you and God. When you practice the discipline of privacy, you protect your peace. You guard your heart from unnecessary criticism, from uninvited opinions, from the pressures of living for the expectations of others. Many people lack peace because they have no boundaries. They open their lives to too many people, and in doing so they invite drama, negativity, and distraction. They wonder why they feel drained, why they struggle with doubt, why they feel distant from God. Could it be that they have allowed too many voices into places that should be reserved for him alone? Learn to move in silence. Let your success speak for itself. Let God reveal his work in you at the right time. Stop seeking validation from people who do not hold your destiny in their hands. Let your discipline of privacy become a shield that protects your peace, your purpose, and your walk with God. What is sacred should remain sacred. What is private should remain private. Trust God to lift you up in his time, in his way, for his glory alone. Not everything deserves a response. Not every argument needs your participation. Not every insult requires your defense. One of the greatest lessons in life, one that few ever truly master, is the ability to remain silent in the face of provocation. The world will try to pull you into endless debates, meaningless conflicts, and distractions designed to steal your peace, but wisdom teaches restraint. Maturity teaches discretion, and true strength is often found in silence. Jesus himself gave us the perfect example of this. When he was falsely accused, when he stood before Pilate, when the crowds shouted for his crucifixion, he did not waste words trying to defend himself. He did not argue with those who had already made up their minds. He did not beg for approval from those who had no authority over his destiny. He remained silent, because he knew that his purpose was greater than their accusation. His mission was more important than proving himself to people who were blind to the truth. How often do we lose our peace because we engage in unnecessary battles? How many times have we been distracted from what truly matters because we felt the need to explain ourselves, to justify our decisions, to fight for recognition, to correct every false narrative about us? The enemy loves to use this as a trap. He wants you caught up in conflicts that drain your energy, relationships that pull you away from God, and arguments that bear no fruit. If the devil can't destroy you, he will try to distract you. Some people thrive on drama. They are always looking for a reaction, always trying to pull you into their chaos. The best way to defeat them is to give them nothing. Do not explain yourself to those who are committed to misunderstanding you. Do not waste your breath on those who do not seek truth but only seek to argue. Do not let your emotions be controlled by people who have no stake in your eternity. Silence is not weakness, it is wisdom. Look at the life of David. Before he became king, he was hunted by Saul, a man driven by jealousy and insecurity. David had every opportunity to defend himself, to fight back, to expose Saul's wickedness. But instead he remained patient. He did not retaliate. He trusted that God would be his defender. And in the end, God removed Saul in his own time, in his own way. David did not have to force anything. God handled it. If you constantly feel the need to respond to every critic, you will never have peace. If you constantly chase validation, you will never rest. There will always be those who misunderstand you. There will always be those who twist your words. There will always be those who seek to provoke you. But your peace is too valuable to be sacrificed on the altar of approval. Your purpose is too great to be derailed by distractions. Guard your words, guard your emotions, guard your focus. You do not have to prove yourself to anyone. God will prove you in his time. You do not have to fight every battle. Some battles are won by standing still and letting God fight for you. You do not have to respond to every accusation. God is your defender. Walk in wisdom. Choose your battles carefully. Keep your life private. Keep your peace guarded. And trust that God will take care of everything else. When you learn to remain silent in the face of unnecessary conflict, you will discover a strength that no man can take from you. You will walk in a peace that no enemy can shake. And you will stand firm, unbothered, because your confidence is not in the opinions of men, but in the sovereign hand of God.